Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Angela. I made a name here on Brightline Eating, or should I say, I made it here. I can't talk. Why am I going live? What is happening? I made a name here on YouTube for doing Brightline Eating and doing it fairly successfully, and then crashing and burning. Unfortunately, being like, I'm done with this program, just being like, I washed my hands of it. I can't deal with it. I'm like binge eating like crazy. This is not the program for me, gaining the weight back, like literally every single pound, and just being like, I'm done. But now, with the lessons I've learned from this book, I am reconsidering it strongly. And I have 7 lessons to tell you about today from the book Rezoom. Let's get started. I have a list over here. So if I'm looking over here, it's literally my notes on my computer. Some things I'm going to really talk about, other things I'm just going to high level mention. But I definitely feel like this is worth a read whether you're doing Brightline Eating or not. The lessons in it are applicable to any diet, any weight loss program, or just if you want to get to know yourself better. If you've had any food struggles at all in your life, such a great read. So if you're not familiar with Brightline Eating and this is completely new to you, I do recommend that you look into the program and start with the original book, which is called Brightline Eating. So if you're one of those people that's like, I'm thinking about doing the program, don't start with this book, start with that book. I have links in the description box below to purchase not only this book, Rezoom, but also the original Brightline Eating book, as well as the cookbook for Brightline Eating. So Rezoom was written by Dr. Susan Pierce Thompson, who's the founder of the Brightline Eating program. And I wanted to go over today 7 lessons I've learned. I've read this entire book and how they have helped me and why they're making me think about redoing Brightline Eating, but modified. So here we go. Lesson number 1. So I personally have always believed this phrase, but the phrase is controversial. And the phrase is, food addiction is real. And this book talks about like the science behind food addiction and why it's a real phenomenon. And to me, I'm like, of course food addiction is real. Like I never had any question that it wasn't. Like I was like, I am definitely suffering from food addiction. Like the way I use food is the way a drug addict would use a drug. Like I literally sit there, binge eat and numb out. I'm telling you, it's like legit. I sit there and I do that. It's not healthy, not good. But this book really dives into food addiction and the science behind it. And just, although it's still quote unquote controversial, it talks about it in depth. And I wanted to start with that because I feel like we need to establish as a society that some people, in fact, quite a lot of people suffer from food addiction. So it needs to become more of our daily vernacular. It literally needs to be something that we are comfortable talking about. We need to remove the stigma in order to fix it, right? Like you got to call it what it is and then acknowledge like it's a thing. And sometimes these things can really take time. I feel like I look and see that slowly but surely, I'm a mommy blogger, by the way, slowly but surely, the stigma of postpartum depression, for example, has gone away, or at least it's starting to go away, and hopefully it will continue on the path. I say this because I would say about 10 to 15 years ago, you didn't talk about postpartum depression. You just pushed through. But now, as more and more people are opening up and saying, I suffer from postpartum depression, it's not that I'm a bad person, my hormones were wonky. More people can feel comfortable talking about it and get the help that they need. More women can seek help because postpartum depression is being talked about and resources are out there. You can research, you can talk to a friend. So as someone who suffered from severe postpartum depression, I am very big on that. And I feel like this is the same thing where it's like food addiction has been around, but it's like now we're starting to talk about it. And then you have people like me who raise their hands and say, yep, I suffer from food addiction. Yep, I have binge eating disorder bad. So it kind of normalizes it. It kind of hopefully makes it to where it's not such a bad, scary thing, untreatable, you're untouchable, you can't ever fix yourself, you're just broken forever. Like, we can talk about these things, right? All right, so that's enough about that. That's number 1. Food addiction is real. We are literally set up for failure in our brains. I'm not going to talk about it. So many Brightline Eating videos talk about how you're set up for failure. Society literally encourages you to binge eat or to indulge. Like, okay. So lesson number 2 that I really appreciate in this Rezoom book is that it goes even further. It goes even deeper into the willpower gap. And I appreciated that because one of the things that I really struggled with in my first time doing Brightline Eating, which if you followed me here on YouTube, like I did Brightline Eating, like I think I was a crystal vaser for like 3 months. Then I fell off and just really was up and down and up and down and really had trouble for like a year. I gave the program like a hardcore try off and on for a year. And it was at the end when my binges became so bad, like the worst I've ever had in my life, that I decided I can't do this anymore. for me, my willpower really got tapped out. And I appreciated that the book really talked more about the willpower gap and ways that we can overcome it. Like, I felt so seen when I read the lines in this book that talked about how if you're a parent of a young child, your willpower is tapped out. Like, it literally said something that I was like, this is me. Like, it was like you're literally using all of your willpower trying not to be angry at your child that just drew on the wall in crayon. I was like, listen, I got a 3.5-year-old boy who is super like gifted and talented. Like, he is like a little mini me in a boy form that's 3.5, just full of energy, super chatty, needs a lot of attention. Just, I have to deal with him every day. And my husband's a flight attendant who's gone half the week. And I'm just like, this is my willpower being tapped out. And I have a full-time job that's high stakes, high stress PR, because I work with media like every week. You know, like I'm on deadline for TV for 5 different TV stations. Gotta go, you know, high stakes, you know. I'm a blogger. I have a social life. Like, I gotta do the housework. I gotta, you know, buy the groceries. Like my willpower is so tapped. And what I had noticed was that I was seeing a lot of bright line eating people who were successful were older. And I was looking at them and I'm like, you know what? I'm not an envious person. I'm really not. For the people who do bright line eating and are successful, I'm not jealous of y'all. Like, I'm genuinely happy for you. I say this in every video because I don't want it to seem as if I'm a bright line eating basher, because one lady accused me of that and was like, you are a bright line eating basher. It was a comment on one of my videos that was like, why I'm not doing bright line eating anymore. And I was like, if I were a bright line eating basher, I would delete all my content about bright line eating. Like, I have made dozens of helpful videos about, like, here's what I eat, you know, here's a grocery shop, you know, here's a blah, 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 like all these resources and tools to help people who are doing bright line eating. And I am not a basher of the program, because I would have deleted all of that if I were mad at the program or blah, blah, blah. You know, I've had my issues with the program. Like, in the past, I was like, they don't know how to work with bloggers. That's something that kind of irks me about any company, because I'm like, this is 2022. And if you don't know how to work with a blogger, like, what are you doing with your life? Why are you not hiring somebody who specializes in this? It just, irritated me. I totally sidebar. But I think that the program overall, they mean well, they do well, they have things they can improve, but I feel like it's a good program. And I actually have always recommended it to many people, not to everybody. A key phrase that I think is important to understand is that bright line eating is for anybody, but it is not for everybody. There's a lot of these little phrases floating around in the bright line eating community, people saying, you know, these phrases that are cliche, but they have meaning and value in your bright line eating journey. So in this phrase, I think it's important to designate that this program can work wonders, but you really got to work at it. And it's so many trade-offs. In fact, I appreciate that Dr. Susan has also talked about how you gotta give credit more in the fact that, yeah, you're choosing to give up alcohol. You know, let's mourn that. Let's be sad about that. I am not really big on drinking, but sure, I'd feel sad thinking about how I could never be at a cocktail party again and enjoy a glass of wine. It is what it is. All right, so there's that. But I just wanted to say that number 2 was that I really felt seen, and that the willpower gap is like explored more in depth with actionable steps and actionable items, you know, like literal advice, like really strong, powerful advice on how to deal with that. So that's number 2. Number 3, all right, parts. So I've heard Dr. Susan talk about parts in some of her videos, and I just was like, in one ear and out the other. Because I'm like, I understand the higher thinking brain, the lower thinking brain. I understand that you could be at war with yourself. In fact, everybody knows, well, not everybody, but if you're new to my channel, maybe you don't know, but I am a Christian, and I go to church, and I believe in Jesus Christ. Amen. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. That's me and my personal beliefs. I totally understand that many people on my channel are not Christian. However, what I will say is, in the sermon this morning at church, the preacher literally was quoting the Bible that says, you know, you are at war with yourself. Like, it was literally just like, I don't do what I really want to do. And I find myself doing that which I don't want to do. It was like Romans 4:7-9, something like that, you know. And I just was like, this is the truth. This is my struggle with food. It's like I'm binge eating, but I don't really want to be binge eating. But in the moment that I'm binge eating, I want to do it. So it was so interesting to read about the parts work in Rezoom, because it was something like she was breaking it up into like the rebel and the food controller and the indulger. And I was like, wow, this is helpful information. You know, I have always recommended a couple of other authors that I think are helpful for people like me that suffer from binge eating addiction. And those two authors are Katherine Hanson, the founder of Brain Over Binge. She wrote that book, highly recommend it. In fact, Dr. Susan with Bright Line Eating even did a video on the Bright Line Eating YouTube channel about Brain Over Binge. It's funny. I do have to say, because I want to be fair, because you know, Bright Line Eating is not a perfect program. It's a very, like, it's really good. It's like right up there, it's at the top, but it's also like not perfect. But the founder, Katherine Hanson, did a response podcast literally saying, we do not advocate this type of eating, because she is anti-diet. She's literally like, don't diet. So two different schools of thought, and just take what you can from both. Maybe this one's for you, maybe that one's not. You know, just do your own research and then decide what you want to do. I support you because we're all on this journey together, this perfectly imperfect journey. Let's just get where we're trying to go. Katherine Hanson, that was good. Brain Over Binge. Number 2 resource that I really like is Never Binge Again, and that is by Dr. Glenn Livingston. And y'all have heard me probably talk about him on my channel before. I think he's an amazing person, also a PhD, a former practicing psychologist, and his book talks about the higher brain and the lower brain. He calls it your food pig, and you can rename it whatever you want. And he basically talks about how you can talk back to it and blah, blah, blah. It's really good. Both books are really good, so I recommend those. Okay, so the parts, it's really like one thing that I appreciate. This book is so full of actionable, good advice. And the parts, like you would have like at the end of every chapter, like the rebel part, and then here's how to deal with it, you know, create your identity as a Bright Line eater, and then blah, blah, blah. We're gonna talk about the identity later on. Okay, so another tip, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is lesson number 4, not tip, lesson number 4. Another lesson is starvation brain. And I got a lot of value in the couple of pages in this book where Dr. Susan mentioned how her thyroid levels were messed up and it could contribute to starvation brain. Because of that 2 pages, I literally have an appointment this Friday to get my thyroid levels checked. And I have had so many friends ask me, have you had your thyroid checked? And I'm like, nah, I'm good, it's fine. Yeah, I have never had my thyroid checked, and it took Dr. Susan talking about her thyroid for me to be like, well, guess I'm gonna get my thyroid checked. You know what I mean? So I think that starvation brain is a real phenomenon. I think hormones have a lot to do with it. I remember when I was in my early 20s, I remember I started taking ortho tricyclone. I don't remember what it's called, but the birth control pill that, like, everybody knows what I'm talking about. I took it for my skin. Like, I literally was like, you know, virgin, like not sexually active, but like I was taking this birth control for my skin because the dermatologist, you know, I suffered from severe cystic acne for 20 years. The dermatologist was like, this is step 1. Let's try orthotricyclone because it's going to lower your skin production of sebum and it'll help your blah, blah, blah. So I took it and I started binge eating. I think that was when I first started binge eating. Like, I've always been chunky and up and down with my weight. But after that, I remember being like, oh my gosh, I can't take these pills because they make me eat all day. And all I do is eat. Like, and I think I gained like 20, 30 pounds rapidly. And I just was like, can't take these pills, not worth it. You know, can you find me something else for my skin? So I definitely feel like hormones have to do with like your hunger levels and blah, blah, blah. So I appreciated that. That was lesson number 4. Lesson number 5, and I think this one is very important. And the reason I am sitting here on my YouTube channel promoting Rezoom is because of this lesson number 5. And it is a lesson that Dr. Susan has talked about in another video on her YouTube channel that's like the acne analogy. And I'd heard her say it in this video a long time ago, and I was like, good on you, Dr. Susan, good on you. And it's funny that I literally just told an acne story and then it somehow segued me into this. I didn't think when I started recording this video that I was going to talk about my acne, but I did. Who knows? You know, whatever comes out of my mouth comes out of it. But totally different seg that she talked about the acne analogy in that video. Go look it up on the Bright Line Eating channel. And in this book, she talks about addressing the addiction first. And I think that this is so important. So let me expound. Allow me to go off and get on my soapbox. So on Bright Line Eating, we don't count calories. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's actually great. I think it's actually really giving people food freedom, and it helps people feel like, oh, I don't think about food. I don't have to sit there and track everything. Automaticity sets in because I'm just weighing and measuring. You know, I have the foods I like to eat, and I know 10 ounces of this for lunch and 10 ounces for that for dinner because I do the 10-10 split whenever I do Bright Line Eating. But here's what I'm going to tell you. Most nutritionists and registered dietitians and weight loss specialists will tell you to not go below 1,200 calories a day. And one of the issues that I have with Bright Line Eating is that when you choose certain foods from the food list, you can be eating around 1,000 calories a day. In fact, I was, because I personally, although I'm not vegetarian or vegan, I like vegan and vegetarian protein options. And so I was choosing these lighter options. Like I was choosing 6 ounces of white beans on a salad. And sometimes I was having 2 salads a day. And if you're having salads like of fresh vegetables where you're just like, 2 ounces of lettuce, 2 ounces of cucumber, 2 ounces of cherry tomatoes, 2 ounces of radishes, and 2 ounces of blah, blah, blah. I don't even remember what I was putting in, but it's like about that. That's about how I make a salad. And if I was having that for lunch and dinner, a 10 ounce of salad and another 10 ounce of salad, those are like 80 calories each. Like, because fresh veggies don't have, like, fresh raw veggies don't have a lot of calories. So they're very calorically not dense. You know what I mean? Like, the caloric density is very low. So you're eating large volume but low calories. And 6 ounces of beans is, I don't know how many calories, probably like 85. Like, I don't even know, but it's low. And so you're eating these things. And I think you're not eating enough protein, you're not eating enough calories. And I know that as an overweight individual, it's important for your body to eat its fat stores, but the problem is the corresponding metabolic slowdown that goes with that is troubling. And I did a video, this was towards the end of my bright line eating journey, whenever I was just like about to hit the cliff, like I was about to go over the cliff. And I was doing well on bright line eating when I recorded this, and I did a video that's like, it's okay if your metabolism slows down. But little did I know how badly it had slowed my metabolism down, because when I started binge eating, it was like rapid explosion of weight gain. And I was like, oh no, my metabolism slowed down so much. And I feel like the reason I'm so happy about the addressing the addiction first is because Dr. Susan has said in her video, and she says in this book, although she says I don't recommend this frequently, I appreciate that she has given people the empowerment of the knowledge of, like, it is okay to take the weight loss food program on Bright Line Eating and deviate it according to your needs. For example, I am active, and I have decided that on this Bright Line Eating journey, if I do choose to dive in, I'm going to remain active, because for me, it's something that's like a mental health break. When I go to the gym, my son goes to the daycare, and it's so fun. He loves it. There's always kids there, and he plays with them because he's super social. And I get my 30 to 60 minutes of cardio and or strength, and then I'm watching Netflix. And I'm like, I never get to watch Netflix unless I go to the gym. So I love it. It's great. It's a winner. I don't want to give that up. So in order to continue to maintain my level of activity, 2 to 4 times a week of activity, I need more calories and I need more protein. And even if I were not active, the Bright Line Eating weight loss food program for me is not enough food. So here's the modification that I would choose to do, because I've really been thinking about this, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to try it. And if I try it, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the weight loss program, but I'm going to add another protein, another grain, and another fat. And by the way, when I do the calories counting for all of that, I am still under 1,500 calories a day with the extra protein, grain, and fat. Because I did 3 days of tracking of Bright Line Eating with those extra foods, and it kept me from binging. And I was like, this is good. But then I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I'm still under 1,500 calories. And if I take away the extra protein, grain, and fat, I'm like below 1,200. Like, what? Like, it's just, whoa. So I want y'all to think about that. Really consider creating a plan that works for you, that is sustainable, that's maybe higher calorie, higher protein. If you keep, like me, trying Bright Line Eating and binging, or trying Bright Line Eating and just being like, I'm not able to stick to this plan, it's not sustainable for me. Well, then let's use the automaticity programs and do the no sugar, no flour, do the quantities, do all those things, just add the extra food on top. And so I really like that the book Rezoom, and now Dr. Susan, is empowering people to choose that. Okay, so now we're going to move on to lesson number 6. Identity. I love this so much because I love the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Who doesn't love that book? That's probably like the number one book that I would recommend to anybody. Like, if you're like, what's the number one book to improve my life? Read Atomic Habits by James Clear. It doesn't matter if you have food addiction or not. It doesn't matter if you're dieting or bright lining. It doesn't matter. Whoever you are, read that book. It's phenomenal. What I really loved that really checked me in this book is how Dr. Susan talked about, like, she can tell instantly if somebody is outcome oriented or identity oriented. And I read her little thing on it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I am outcome oriented. This is part of the problem for me. It's that I'm sitting there stepping on the scale every day being like, did I lose weight? Did I lose weight? Oh, didn't lose weight, feeling discouraged. Really, to make this a sustainable program, you need to be identity oriented, meaning like you don't care what the scale says, you don't care what the benefits are, like you're just here to execute. She has a video, Dr. Susan also has a video that's called Execute Program Lunch. And not launch, execute program launch. And go watch that video too. It's here on Bright Line Eating's YouTube channel. And it's basically, she's just like, when you are in automaticity, you are literally just pushing the buttons. And I'm like, that's what I want to be. I just want to be that person that's like, it doesn't matter what says I am. It doesn't matter, what I look like. I just am a bright line eater, and this is how I eat. And no matter, NMF, not my food, is not an option at all. So I really feel like I need to rewire my brain to get to that level, because I think that's the level that will take me to where I want to be. The outcome will come when you do the steps to create and solidify the identity to get you there. All right, so that's number 6. Number 7, this is also such an important one, and I saved not the best for last, but like one of the top lessons for last. And I think it's also one of the issues why I was not successful. There were so many issues of why I was not successful in bright line eating initially, and this is one of the reasons, is that you've got to shore up your support. You've got to have your support locked in, and you really need to use it, especially if you have a certain personality type like I do, that's needing as much accountability and support externally as possible. So let me talk about that. Let me unpack this. So I read the book called The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. You might be familiar with her as an author because she wrote The Happiness Project. And so that's what she's famous for. But I feel that her best book is The 4 Tendencies. It's so good to get to know yourself and to know what your personality is. And it also, I feel, is very useful. I was like, what is that on my shirt? Anyway, it's also very useful to know those around you. So when you read The 4 Tendencies, you'll know which of the 4 personality types you are. So 44% of people, so the majority of people, are what we call obligers. I'm an obliger. I think Dr. Susan is also an obliger. And I know a ton of obligers. And so obligers are the type of people where we will do for others more than we will do for ourselves. And what that means, like, you're a people pleaser, right? And so for me, saying to myself, like, I'm going to do bright line eating tomorrow, this is my food plan, I committed to myself, is not really good. I have to be the kind of person, as an obliger, that commits my food to a person. And I like how this book, Rezoom, really goes into that. And she talks about how the best commitment of your food is live on the phone with another person at the same time every day. And I was like, wow, that's a really hot tip. I don't know if I can do that, just because the way my life is right now with my young son, and it's just like, well, the only time I have is after 9:30, and I need to really just woo, and I don't know who's available at 9:30 p.m. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, I don't know if I can do that, but let me try to work around it. Let me, Marco Polo person, and also I was like, let me get a sponsor. So I literally found a sponsor here where I live, who actually lives like 10-15 minutes from me. I was like, oh my gosh, can you be my sponsor on Bright Light Eating? I'm really thinking hard about redoing this program, and I want to get in a good place. And she's like, let's talk. So it's like having the support that you need is important, and it's crucial. In fact, there's a lady here on YouTube named Tomi, Tomi. She's made many comments on my YouTube videos, and one of her comments recently on like 1 or 2 videos ago was like, I always thought, Angela, one of the reasons you fell off Bright Light Eating was that your support structure was not strong enough. And I said, this could be a thing. Like, I was surrounding myself with people who did bright line eating. One thing I will say that I'm good about is I'm good at convincing people to do things. Like, I had convinced a lot of people to do bright line eating. I had convinced so many people to buy the book. And I was surrounded by people who I had convinced to do bright line eating, but the problem is, if you're the one that's like the leader and you're struggling yourself, it just all crumbles. And I did have people that were like, there were 2 ladies that were crystal vasers that talked to me on Marco Polo. They were amazing. But when I was in my struggle zone, they couldn't relate. And it just was like, I felt like they were judging me, even though they never really, you know what I mean? So I was just like, I'm going to pull back. This book also talks about how, try not to isolate and shame and hide away if you are in the weeds with your food and you're struggling. And I was like, okay, that's me. I have a tendency to do that. I mean, who doesn't? Who doesn't have a tendency to do that when you're struggling, But this time I was like, all right, let me get the sponsor. Let me get a good mastermind group, because I did have a mastermind group, and I love those ladies to this day. Out of all 4 of us, only one still does bright-ish. She does bright-ish. She lost, I think, like 20-30 pounds on bright line eating, but she also was like, she was one of those people that was just like, she didn't do the program 100%. Like, she did it, and then she would, like, on a Sunday allow herself some treats. And I was just like, she can do that. I can't do that, And she's lost like 20 or 30. And I think the last I heard from her a few weeks ago was that she's considering doing the weight loss program again to get, another 10-15 down. But she's happy where she is now, which is amazing. Good on her. The other 2 ladies were just, poop, didn't work, like just falling off. So I feel like my structure support in the mastermind group was not ideal. So I'm like, if I do another mastermind group, I want it to be people who are in it to win it so that I can be held to a higher standard of accountability because these other women are killing it. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, I want to be surrounded by like women who are like, whoa, we are in Bright Lane Eating. We are, whatever. So I definitely need some prayers. And as I'm continuing to examine what I will do next, I appreciate your kind thoughts. And I always have been asking lately on my channel to keep the comments kind because there have been some really hurtful comments from people that are just like, this guy, John. I talked about this in my last video because it upset me so much. This guy, John, was like, you were on Bright Line Eating and then you did WW, then you back on Bright Line Eating, WW. And I was like, listen, do you not see that I am like a food struggler? Like, do you not see that I just struggle as a human being? Like, my life is a struggle. Why are you judging me? Like I am failing at so many things I'm trying, but especially food, and it's like, I already hurt. I already judge myself. I already feel bad about it and vulnerable. And for somebody like that to just make these hurtful comments, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're hurting my feelings. And I'm very overly sensitive, which this book talks about how people who have food addiction are overly sensitive. And I'm like, yep, that's me. So I just ask that you keep your comments like uplifting and, just helpful in general because I appreciate that. And I do get like fussy and feisty on my channel, and I will come back at somebody that makes a hurtful comment that I feel is uncalled for. So those are my thoughts on the book Rezoom. I cannot believe I've been talking for almost 30 minutes about this book, but it is a really good book. And I think that everybody who gets it will get some things out of it. I also appreciate that this was not meant to be a quick read. Like, she literally was like, Dr. Susan said, this is meant to be like a textbook. And that's how I read it. Like, it was just like a couple of pages every night, I also called this book new, but I feel like it came out at the end of last year. So I'm like 4 months behind, but I've also been very like hands-off Bright Lane Eating. Like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to touch it. Like, I just feel really burned. And now I'm like, okay, I'm getting back into where I'm like, there is benefit to the program. Let's talk about this and how can I structure the plan to where it works for me with the extra food so that I can maintain my fitness level and, activity, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, this is too much rambling. I love you all so much. Can't wait to hear what you think. Drop your comments below. Bye.